Okay, let's just unpack this. It is late January 2026. And I don't know about where you are, but looking out the window here, that winter chill is really settling in. It's gray, it's cold. But for a specific slice of the culture, for the music fans, and definitely for the neo-soul heads listening, there is a different kind of coldness we are all still dealing with. It has been just over 3 months since we lost a titan.
Michael Eugene Archer, better known to the world and to history simply as D'Angelo.
Exactly. October 14th, 2025. I mean, that date is going to stick with people for a long, long time. Pancreatic cancer took him at 51. And I think for a lot of us, the shock hasn't really worn off. You expect these legends to just be there forever, right? Just lurking in the background, mysterious, maybe dropping a masterpiece once a decade.
It creates a vacuum.
Yeah.
When a cultural architect like that passes, the silence is loud. It's heavy. But what is so fascinating here, and what we are really digging into today, is how people fill that silence. We are seeing the usual tributes, sure. The covers, the Instagram memorials, the reposting of the untitled video. But today, we are diving into something completely different. We're looking at a project called Peace and Love, Celebrating You.
Right. And just to set the stage, this is a tribute album dropping on February 11th, 2026.
Which would have been his 52nd birthday.
His 52nd birthday. But here's the thing. A creator isn't a famous R&B singer. She isn't a producer from the Soulquarians era. She isn't even a musician in the traditional sense.
No, and that is the hook. The creator is Kim Louise. She is an award-winning playwright and novelist based in Omaha, Nebraska. She is a writer. She doesn't play instruments. She doesn't have a studio band. She doesn't tour.
Which brings us to the mission of this deep dive. Because we aren't just talking about a set of songs here. We are analyzing a very specific phenomenon. We are talking about what happens when overwhelming grief meets cutting-edge technology. We are talking about grief-activated creativity. And here's where it gets really distinct. Kim Louise created this entire sound journey using artificial intelligence.
Specifically, an app called Suno. And I know usually when we say AI in creative arts, people brace for a debate about the industry. But if we look at the source material, Kim's notes on her process, the lyrics, this isn't about replacing an artist. It's about a non-musician finding a way to speak a language she doesn't natively speak, to honor someone who is a master of it.
Okay, so let's start with the human element before we even get to the tech. Who is Kim Louise in relation to D'Angelo? Because reading through her bio, she has serious literary chops. 11 novels, plays produced by the Union for Contemporary Art. I mean, she is busy. Why D'Angelo?
Her connection to him is deeply personal, in that way that only true music fans really understand. She describes herself as an introvert, where music was her best friend growing up. But D'Angelo wasn't just on her playlist. He was a muse. In her first published novel, Destiny Song, one of the main characters, Xavier Allgood, was primarily inspired by D'Angelo.
Wow. So he has been living in her head creatively for decades. That's not just a casual fan. That's incorporating his essence into her own art.
Decades. She mentions hearing the song Brown Sugar in a coffee shop in Atlanta 30 years ago. She said she thought, I've never heard music like that. He taught her, through his music, to be creatively vulnerable. So when he died last October, it hit her like a physical blow. It wasn't just a celebrity death. It was a loss of a creative partner she'd never met.
I loved this detail in her notes. She says she usually only checks social media once a month, which honestly is a life goal for me. But when the news broke, she went straight to Facebook. And she did something completely out of character. She posted a video of herself singing the chorus to Untitled, How Does It Feel?
For a self-described introvert, that is a massive signal of distress. It is a breakage of the norm. And that brings us to this concept of grief-activated creativity, or what psychologists might call sublimation. It's taken that raw, destructive energy of loss and channeling it into production.
She used a really funny, relatable comparison for this in her notes. She compared it to the yeast shortage during the COVID pandemic.
Right. Do you remember that? That sudden, collective, overpowering need everyone had to bake bread, to make something tangible when the world felt intangible and scary. When D'Angelo died, Louise experienced a similar surge. She started filling journals, pages and pages of lyrics, song titles, melodies she could hear in her head but couldn't play. The grief was too big to just sit with. It had to be made into something.
And this is the crux of the problem, right? You have the soul of a songwriter, the ear of a fan, and you have this tidal wave of lyrics, but you don't have the technical skill to pick up a bass guitar and slap out a funk rhythm. So normally that music just dies in your head. But she turned to a new tool.
Exactly. She turned to AI. And this is where we need to really deconstruct the method, because it's not what people usually assume. She didn't just type, make a D'Angelo song into a generator and hit enter. In her How I Created the Album notes, she describes a process that is incredibly writerly.
She calls herself an early adopter in this new musical frontier, but what struck me was the specificity. It's almost like prompt engineering as poetry. She wasn't asking for generic sounds, she was painting with words.
That is a great way to put it. Because she is a novelist and playwright, she approached the AI with narrative. Listen to this prompt she shared from her notes.
Yeah.
This is exactly what she fed the system to get the sound she wanted. Moody neo-soul ballad with hints of funk and R&B, clean atmospheres of musical singularities with trips into each instrument. The deep bass drives along with the resonating drums. Lead vocal is forlorn and struggling, but gains strength at the end.
Musical singularities with trips into each instrument. That is specific. She's directing the AI like she would direct a lighting designer or stage actor. She's giving it motivation, not just genre tags.
Precisely. She is encoding the emotional arc into the prompt. She analyzes her feeling, writes the lyrics, which are 100% hers. By the way, the AI didn't write the words. And then she uses the tech to build the sonic house for those lyrics to live in. She talks about it as lineage work. She is using the tools of 2026 to honor the traditions of soul and funk.
It's interesting because usually we frame technology as the opposite of soul, but she's framing it as a vessel for it. Like, I can't play the drums, but I know what the drums should feel like to honor this man.
Right. She views the AI not as the artist, but as the synthesizer. It's just a very advanced drum machine, a tool to bridge the gap between her imagination and the speakers.
So let's get into the actual album, because
Sure.
the structure, it's not just a collection of songs thrown together. It feels like a story. It has a beginning, middle, and end.
It is a narrative arc.
Yeah.
It moves from the shock of grief through the bargaining and ritual, and finally into celebration. It mirrors the stages of grief, but set to a backbeat.
And it kicks off with a track title that made me laugh out loud and then immediately feel sad. Track 1 is called Target is Having a Sale on Blankets.
It is such a striking title. It captures what Louise calls the continuity paradox of grief.
That's a heavy concept. Break that down for us. What is the continuity paradox?
It's the dissonance you feel when your personal world has ended. Someone you love is gone, but the external world is just chugging along. The mail still comes, the bills are due, Target sends you a coupon. Louise had this specific thought. How dare a department store have a sale on blankets when a GOAT has just died?
It's almost offensive, right? Like, doesn't the world know we are mourning? Stop the commerce for 5 minutes.
Exactly. And the lyrics really dig into that. The marathon runs on, I lay still, the world keeps moving. It captures that jarring feeling that the machinery of commerce doesn't stop to mourn our heroes. It sets the scene perfectly for where she is emotionally stuck in stillness while everything else moves.
And then we move from that paralyzed feeling into action. Track 2 is called Push 30, Breathe 2. Now, anyone who has taken a first aid class or watched a medical drama knows exactly what that reference is.
It is the ratio for CPR. 30 compressions, 2 rescue breaths.
But she's not talking about literal CPR here. She's not trying to resuscitate a body.
No, it's a metaphor for keeping the legacy alive. It is a promise not to let the music die. Push 30, breathe 2 becomes a mantra. But what I love about this track is how she weaves in cultural spirituality. It's not just medical, it's metaphysical.
Yeah, I caught the reference to Oya in the lyrics. That stirred out.
Yes, Oya is the Orisha of winds, storms, and transformation in the Yoruba religion. The lyrics say, take this drone, cross the river of souls, tell Oya to let you in. It is framing D'Angelo's death not just as an end, but as a transition. She is saying that he needs to pay the toll to cross the river, and the toll is rhythm.
It is deep. It is almost like she is acting as a spiritual guide for him, ensuring he gets to the other side safely. And that vibe gets even heavier and honestly a little darker in the next track, The Eighth Note of Forever. This one felt spooky, but in a good swampy funk kind of way.
It is a conjure spell, explicitly. This is her nod to D'Angelo's Voodoo album, which many argue is his masterpiece. Voodoo was all about that murky, spiritual, heavy soul. Louise leans all the way into that imagery here.
The lyrics are full of what you'd call root work imagery, right? It felt very earthy.
Exactly. She references mojo bags, graveyard dust, purple candles. The line lit purple candles to cast the light stands out. It feels like she is trying to summon him back, or if not him, then the energy he possessed. She's trying to tap into the source code of his creativity.
And the title, The Eighth Note, what does that mean to you?
It's a beautiful abstraction. In a standard scale, you have 7 notes before you return to the octave. Calling him the eighth note of forever suggests he exists outside the normal scale of time. He is the extra note, the secret note that makes the music work, the one you can't find on a piano but you can feel in the room.
But then the album pivots, and this is crucial because if it stayed in that graveyard dust vibe, it would be too heavy. We can't stay sad forever. Track 4 is Pomade and Cornrows. This is where the party starts.
This is the shift. This is where we move from mourning to gratitude. Louise says her favorite line on the whole album is in this track. Dance like he gave you something.
I love that. Dance like he gave you something. It's almost a command. It forces you to get up.
It is an imperative. It is saying, don't just cry because he is gone. Move your body because of what he left you. The title references that crisp, well-groomed aesthetic D'Angelo had in the brown sugar era, the cornrows, the perfectly styled look. It's a celebration of black cool.
It feels like she is remembering him at his peak, rather than focusing on the loss. It reminds me of how D'Angelo could be so precise with his image.
Exactly. It's the moment at the funeral pass where someone puts on the upbeat music and people start sharing funny stories. The heaviness lifts.
And speaking of lifting, we have to talk about funking off the walls, because this is where Kim Louise, the fiction writer, really takes the wheel. She basically invents a mythology for the afterlife in this song.
This is pure Parliament Funkadelic tribute. If you know P-Funk, you know the mythology of the mothership.
Yeah.
In this track, Louise envisions the mothership landing to pick D'Angelo up.
The mothership, that's such a classic trope.
It is the ultimate honor in funk mythology. The lyrics are fantastic here. The mothership landed, O good and faithful nephew, we came to take you higher. She lists the welcoming committee waiting for him on the ship. Jimi Hendrix, James Brown, Prince.
Man, what a lineup. That is a hell of a jam session.
Right. She imagines D'Angelo not as dead, but as recruited. He's being called up to the major leagues of the cosmos. The lyric, solar, mystic, futuristic, neuron, liberation. It frames his death as an ascension to a higher plane of funk.
It is such a comforting thought, isn't it? That he isn't gone, he is just up there with Prince, jamming on some intergalactic frequency.
It recontextualizes the loss. It's not an end, it's a promotion.
Now, we mentioned earlier that Kim is a playwright. She has written plays like Frozen Charlottes and By a Thread. How does that background actually shape an album? Because as we are breaking this down, this doesn't feel like just a playlist of 10 songs.
It shapes everything. A playwright thinks in scenes, they think in emotional beats. If you look at the sequence we just discussed, shock, target, ritual, push 30, summing, eighth note, celebration, pomade, ascension, funkin' off the walls. That is a dramatic structure.
It's a 3-act play.
Essentially, Act 1 is the grief. Act 2 is the ritual. Act 3 is the release. And the visuals she created to go with it reflect that too. She used these paisley patterns, microphones with wings. It's all very theatrical. She's creating a world, not just a sound. She even mentions in her notes that she views the songs as scenes meant to be felt.
So let's look at the release itself, because even the date is part of the storytelling.
February 11th, 2026, D'Angelo's birthday. It frames the release as an offering. It's a gift back to him rather than a commercial product for us.
And the title, Peace and Love, isn't random either.
No, that was his signature. If you watch old interviews or even his concert sign-offs, he would often start or end with peace and love. She's adopting his language to say goodbye. It's a call and response across the veil.
And we should mention the cause here, because this is important. This isn't a cash grab. She is not pocketing the money from this AI experiment.
Right. 100% of the net proceeds are going to the Black Boy Joy Foundation Pancreatic Research Fund. This was the fund established by D'Angelo's family after he passed. So buying the album is a direct contribution to fighting the disease that took him.
That is awesome. It circles back to that idea of push 30, breathe 2, actually doing something to help. And there's one final track we haven't touched on yet, The Closer. It is just called Damn.
Damn. It is the perfect title for a D'Angelo tribute.
Why is that? Damn feels abrupt.
Think about a D'Angelo live show. Did the songs ever really end? Or did they just mutate?
Oh, no. They would go on for like 20 minutes. He'd do the breakdown and then leave the stage, and the band would keep playing.
Exactly. The double encore.
Yeah.
The breakdown after the breakdown. Damn represents that infinite encore. Louise calls it a refusal to put a period at the end of the sentence. The idea is that the music never really resolves. It just keeps grooving somewhere else.
I love that concept, the infinite encore. It captures the feeling of a great show where you don't want to leave the venue.
It leaves the listener with the feeling that the vibe continues, even if the record stops. It's hopeful.
So stepping back, what does this all mean? We have a playwright from Nebraska using an AI app to make a funk album for a departed soul legend. It sounds crazy on paper.
It does. But if you step back, it is a perfect synthesis of the moment we are living in. It is a conversation transcending time. You have the AI providing the structure, the synthesizer of 2026, but the funk and soul, the emotional core, comes from a Black female playwright who is grieving.
It brings up a big question about the future of creativity. We spend so much time worrying about the tools, but this seems to suggest something else.
It does. It suggests we are entering an era where genre might not be defined by your technical skill. Can you physically play the bass?
Yeah.
But by your ability to tell a story. If a writer can become a composer to process grief, are we moving toward a world where the only thing that matters is the story you need to tell, and the tools are just distinct brushes?
That is a wild thought. The idea that the barrier to entry for emotion is gone. If you can feel it and describe it, you can create it.
Right. And regarding D'Angelo, I think the question this album leaves us with is, how do we keep the music alive? How do we push 30 Breathe 2 for the artists we love?
We listen, we remember. And as Kim Louise says, we dance like he gave us something.
Absolutely. We keep the groove going.
I think I'm going to go listen to Voodoo right now. I need that Spanish joint bass line.
I might join you.
If you want to check out Peace and Love Celebrating You, it is on the streaming platforms as of February 11th. And hey, support that research fund if you can. Thanks for diving in with us.
Peace and love.